Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati Ji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. First of all, it's really important to realize that just because in retrospect you feel badly about something, we can't then turn around and say, I didn't mean to do it. One of the things we all have, unless we are physically challenged in some way that earlier we would have called handicapped or disabled, other than those circumstances, we actually do have full control over our arms and our legs. We do actually have full control over our mouths, what we eat, what we drink, what we say. And so when, in retrospect, we say things like, I didn't mean to, or that wasn't me, really what we're saying is, that wasn't the me whom I'm most proud of. That wasn't conscious me. That wasn't skillful me. That wasn't aware and mindful me. But it's really important to recognize that it was you, at least in your individual lowercase s self. And the reason that that's so important is if something happened through my subconscious, meaning I was not consciously mindful in that moment, it just happened, it means I have a tendency toward that. And whether it's a tendency toward anger and violence, maybe I picked up my hand and slapped someone or hit someone. Maybe it's a tendency toward lust, like this person, I cheated on someone. Maybe it's a tendency toward greed. I shoplifted or went out and unnecessarily spent a whole bunch of money on shopping therapy. In all of these cases, all that has happened is my subconscious patterns took control. My conscious, mindful, aware mind was not in charge, whether because I was distracted, whether because I was stressed out, whether because I was busy, whether because I was under the influence of something. But that which happened only because there was a subconscious programming to it. No matter how drunk you are, you wouldn't do something that you didn't have a subconscious pattern for. All that chemistry does, alcohol, drugs, all it does is it essentially removes inhibitions, it removes filters. But you wouldn't, for example, go out and have sex with an elephant, even if you could hold it still. Because on no level is there an interest or an attraction. So it's not like suddenly you woke up and found that you were having sex with an elephant. What it means is that most of the time you're able to keep those drives in check in that moment, due to the disinhibited state from the alcohol, that which was happening in your subconscious programming just became action. And the reason that I mention this in such detail is really similar to what I said last night, which is the only way to even begin to try to make something like that better is a deep acknowledgement that there is a problem. A lot of times what happens is we feel embarrassed, not just guilty, but embarrassed. And we'd like to essentially just say, forget it, I didn't mean it, it wasn't me. It's okay, he can come in right here. Just come and sit down. It's okay. Just come. I didn't mean it, forget about it. The dilemma is, what's to say you're not going to do it again? And when we're looking at aspects of betrayal, of harm, the only way to know that you are unlikely to do it again is if you actually work to change the very patterns that made it happen in the first place. A, to make sure that you're never drunk again, if what that means is that you cannot be trusted. And B, to work on what are the underlying issues around lust that would drive you. Plenty of people drink alcohol and don't cheat on their spouses. I mean, there's nothing about alcohol that in and of itself, it sends you into the arms of someone who is not your spouse. There's gotta be something in you to make that happen. And so, if you are afraid they aren't going to forgive you, the only chance you have is to really acknowledge that there is a problem somewhere. And to show that you are really prepared to work to address that problem. To address an underlying habit. An underlying what we would call sanskara, an inclination toward lust or anger, greed, whatever it may be. But that would be the only way. Otherwise, people say, oh, that wasn't me. It wasn't me, I didn't mean it. And all that means is I'm not proud of it. Because you absolutely meant it in the moment. You were not unconscious. If you were in a coma, if you were unconscious, then you could say, yeah, I didn't mean it. But if you were conscious, you have full control over your arms, over your legs, over your mouth. We need to really start taking a lot more responsibility for ourselves. And I don't mean this in a way to make us feel guilty or shameful at all. It's actually the opposite. It's a personal empowerment lesson of, I'm not a victim. I'm not a slave. I'm not a slave to chemistry of alcohol or drugs. I'm not a slave to habits of thought or habits of behavior. I'm not a slave to what I experienced in my childhood. Just because my dad cheated on my mom doesn't mean I am destined to cheat on my wife. Just because my dad was an alcoholic doesn't mean I am destined to become one. We are not slaves. We're not victims of our genes, of our hereditary, of our chemistry. But this is where our meditative practices and our spiritual practices are really so important, because they change that subconscious programming we have. They change our actual neural networks, those sanskaras that we speak about. Most of the time you may be able to suppress it and repress it. But then you get yourself under the influence of something that removes your inhibitions. And that which you've been stuffing down suddenly comes out. It's why we see I saw it with my mom when my mom had her stroke 2 years ago, and we see it with people with dementia a lot, where they used to be, polite people, or more polite. Suddenly, somebody starts having dementia, or they have some kind of brain injury, like my mom had a stroke. And in the 6 weeks after her stroke, she swore more than I used to joke with her that I heard more swear words from her mouth in an hour than I had heard in the 25 years beforehand. And while my mom had always been certainly outspoken and vocal, she was not someone who would just stand there and, cuss you out. She was polite. And yet, you see it a lot, that people, she was upset. Obviously, she had just had a stroke. She was in pain. She couldn't see. She was confused. And so suddenly all the words that we know you're not supposed to use, they just come pouring out. And you see this a lot in patients with brain damage, patients with dementia, where suddenly all of the filters that make us, polite and nice and well-behaved normally, well, we lose those. And so suddenly, exactly what I think of you is exactly what I'm going to tell you in exactly whatever words might appear to my mind. And this is where working on those deep subconscious levels is so important. Because ultimately the goal of life is not just that we should learn how to properly suppress or repress or deny our lust or our anger or our greed, but that we should actually transcend them. So that no matter how much alcohol you gave someone, they still wouldn't do it because there wouldn't be the interest in doing it. There wouldn't be the drive to do it. They might slur their words, they might fall all over themselves and trip, they might throw up, but they wouldn't do something that they didn't have the drive to do. And that's why we work not just on our behavior, but we work actually on this subtle level of impressions upon the mind, impressions upon the intellect. When we leave these bodies, this is going a little bit more subtle and complex than the questioner had asked, but it's important and really, I find it very powerful to know. When we leave these physical bodies, we know that the soul stays in existence, that the soul is not bound by the body, and that the soul is therefore that which takes on another body and another incarnation until our full cycle of birth and death is complete and we attain moksha, freedom, liberation. But with the soul travels what we call the subtle body. And the subtle body is made up of man, buddhi, and ahankar. And that's our mind, our intellect, but not the content of it. So it's not, I learned algebra in this life, I won't have to learn it in my next life. Or I can speak fluent French in this life, great, I will, be able to speak it in my next life. But it's actually the way of thinking, the impressions upon my mind, my subconscious programming, how I think, what my tendencies are. That actually travels with us. And so eventually we've got to do this work. Don't think, it's God, it's awful in this life, but at least next life, I'll have another chance. We are carrying that subtle body with us into our next life. So the sadhana that we do to purify that subtle body, to purify, we also speak about it when we talk about the 5 sheaths, the koshas. In yoga, I won't go into all of that now, but we know we've got the different sheaths, the different bodies of the physical body and mental body and the pranic body, then mental, then intellectual, then causal, the bliss body. But again, it's the same thing. The bodies, the sheaths of the mind, of the intellect, of the vital body, the pranamaya kosha, those 3 travel with us as the subtle body. So we've got to do that sadhana at some point. We've got to work through our lust, our greed, our anger, our egos at some point. So why not now? But don't just do it for someone else. Don't do it because your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your partner is going to be angry at you for cheating on them. Do it because you want to be free of the drive that would lead you to do such a hurtful thing in the first place. That would lead you to do something that you regret so much and feel so guilty about in the first place. So we do that work. Such that that subtle body, slowly, 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 it gets purified. And then ultimately it dissolves when we hit that state of liberation. So then you end up with much more than just a boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse who's not angry at you.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. Not confused, but semantically confused when we speak about self, because there's many aspects of self. But there's two that I'll draw a distinction between for the sake of explanation. We have what I call the lowercase s self and the capital S self. So the capital S self is that which is one with the divine. The capital S self is the ocean, in the metaphor of waves on the ocean. As in, there is an infinite ocean. That is the metaphor for soul, spirit, divinity, infinity, consciousness. And then there's waves, which are the metaphor for each of our individual experiences, karmic packages, individual life. The capital S self is ocean, meaning even though it may be currently in the form of a wave, its highest truth is ocean. So our capital S self is soul, is spirit, is divinity, is consciousness. And these are different words that are used. They're not exactly synonymous, but for this discussion, they're synonymous enough. And they're all words that are used to describe that highest truth of who we are, which is not the body. That which is not born, that which does not die. That which is infinite and is immortal and is one with all and is perfect. That's the capital S self. The lowercase s self is the wave. In Sanskrit, we speak about Jivatma, which is this individual soul self, and Paramatma, the ultimate, supreme, divine, which is actually our truth. So sometimes yoga is spoken about as the union of Jivatma with Paramatma, the union of individual with supreme. Now, it's actually a reunion because we ultimately were never really separate. So it's more of a re-remembrance of the union that has never ceased to exist. But we speak about it as a union. So the lowercase s self is this individual body. My experiences, my history, my thoughts, my memories, my psyche, my subtle body, my mind, my intellect, my ego, plus all of the content, what I've learned, what I think, what I've experienced. The sadhana, the meditation, is done by the lowercase s self to experience the capital S self. Capital S self has no reason to do sadhana. What does the ocean need to do? It's the ocean. It can't do anything anyway. It just is. Isness. There's no verb that goes with isness other than just is. It doesn't do something. It just is. That which does is the lowercase s self. So my lowercase s self says, I really need to meditate. My lowercase s self sets the alarm. The alarm goes off in the morning. A more skillful act, a more skillful aspect of my lowercase s self says, I'm going to get up. It seems ridiculously early. I'm in the middle of a beautiful dream. It's so cozy under the covers, but I'm going to get up. A slightly less skillful aspect of my lowercase s self says, tomorrow. And it hits the snooze button and goes back to sleep. Depending on which one acted first, let's say I get up and I sit to meditate. In my mind, I start chanting the mantra. Or I'm focusing on my breath, or I'm doing whatever my meditative practice is. That is lowercase s self. That is the mind. That's actually why, ironically, even though the mind cannot know the capital S self, and the mind in many ways is the greatest impediment to knowing that self, because the mind keeps telling us we are lowercase s self. Nonetheless, without the mind, we also cannot know the capital S self, because we need the mind to actually, as it becomes more refined and skillful, take us through practices and techniques and teachings that ask us, who am I? Who am I? Or that teach us mantras of, I am divine, aham brahmasmi, soham. Whatever that mantra may be, that is the mind chanting that. And that's why the game is not about killing the mind or annihilating the mind, but it's much more about refining the mind and taming the mind to actually be able to utilize it for me, to help me know my capital S self. So who's doing the sadhana? A very beautifully clear and skillful lowercase s self to know the capital S self.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. We should try in general not to be anti almost anything, because anti creates within us a sense of negativity. Even if it's something that we know we don't want. For example, anti-cigarette smoking or anti-drug use. These are certainly good things to be against. But if in my mind I am anti them, there's a lot of energy in my mind that is still wrapped up in thinking about cigarettes and drugs. I'm so anti-drugs that my attention and my thoughts are all filled up with drugs. It's that example that I always give. If I say, okay, close your eyes, and whatever you do, just don't think about elephants. Okay? No elephants. You can think about anything else, but no elephants. Remember, no elephants. Right? Open your eyes. So, what's our mind filled with? Right? Elephants, of course. The fact that there's a no in front of them doesn't change the fact that my mind is full of elephants. So, in general, I advise against too much anti-ness, because all it does is fill our mind, A, with negativity, and B, with thoughts of exactly what it is I am so anti. However, that being said, back to the question about to be social or not to be social. Well, having close, good connections with people is really important. We're seeing an epidemic of loneliness in the world. Massively, across the world. Yes, the pandemic, of course, created some of it, but it's not only pandemic. It was happening pre-pandemic. It has continued post-pandemic. There's an epidemic of loneliness. I forget the statistics. Usually I'm good with statistics, but I forget these ones. Of the number of people in America who don't have even one close friend. I haven't seen research for India. My guess is it's much better. India tends to be a much more social country. But the number of people who don't have even one friend they can talk to. So connection is important on a deep level, to be seen for who you are. Everybody on the street, everybody on the campus, everybody in class sees what you look like. You're thin, you're fat, you're tall, you're short, you're pretty, maybe not so pretty, handsome, maybe not so handsome, whatever it may be. Everybody sees that and judges you based on that. You need at least one person who sees you, who's not seeing your gender or the color of your skin or the size of your waist. Someone who actually sees you. So you want to make sure, to whatever extent possible, that there's someone in your life. If you have 2 or 3, consider yourself extremely blessed. People who share your values. You can talk to about things that are important. They see you. They hold space for you to really be the fullness of who you are. They don't say things like, oh, if you do that, nobody's going to like you, or, oh, cool kids, don't do that. They're going to really hold space for you to blossom and be the fullness of yourself. In Sanskrit, we speak about it as Sangha, the Sangha, that community. And it's so important that actually in the Buddhist tradition, of the 3 things that we pray that we are taking refuge in, the prayer says, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I take refuge in the Buddha, in the awakened one. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. I take refuge in the Dharma, the path, the way. And Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. I take refuge in the Sangha. So it's that important to have, again, it could be 1. It could be 2. It doesn't have to be 50. It certainly doesn't have to be 500. But there should be someone, as you're walking your path, who sees you and who you can share openly with without worrying about being criticized or made fun of or anything like that. But the dilemma with the way that the social life works in university, she's a student, so maybe not university, maybe high school, college, university, somewhere. The dilemma with the way that our social life, in most of our student years, but also sadly into some of our adulthood works, is it's empty. It's completely empty, and it's therefore an utter and complete waste of time. You go to a party, there may be 100 people, there may be 500 people there, but you don't actually walk away from that party feeling any more deeply connected. You haven't actually looked in someone's eyes and felt their heart and had a connection. All you've done is moved through people who to you look like objects. Oh, he's hot. Oh, she's hot. Oh, maybe I'll talk to them. Oh, why doesn't she want to talk to me? Oh, maybe I'll get him to talk to me. We move through just objectifying people and objectifying ourselves. Don't I look great? Aren't I beautiful? Aren't I the best dancer? And all it does is get us more and more stuck in a box of self-objectification. So I'm not anti-parties. I would never say don't go to a party. But if you're, as a student, having these questions and therefore deeply introspecting, I would never say, oh, you should go to more parties. Make sure you go to more parties. If you enjoy them, no problem. But try to spend as much time as possible. I mean, our student years are so busy. All of our lives are busy, but especially student years. So little time is left that's not in class, in studies, in sports, with family. Try to spend that time in something that actually enriches you. Go out with one person or two people and actually have a meaningful connection. Do something that at the end of the day or the end of the evening you actually feel enriched, seen, supported, deeper. You've experienced something, you've learned something. That's the type of social that we need. These days everybody's got thousands and thousands and thousands of friends on Facebook. And every year we're having more and more friends online while our loneliness is going up and up. So there's clearly a zero correlation between the number of friends I have online and my internal sense of loneliness. But a lot of the friends we have in this very superficial social circle aren't actually any more deep or meaningful or beneficial to our lives than friends we have on Facebook. In fact, if you're honest, a lot of people feel they're most lonely in big parties or surrounded by lots of people. Because that's when we're so acutely aware, my God, nobody actually sees me, nobody actually knows me, I'm just an object, I'm just the clothes I'm wearing. I don't actually know anyone or see them. And it actually, in many cases, makes us feel even more lonely. So be social, no problem. But be consciously social. Whatever we do, we should do it consciously. Is this actually something that is enriching me and deepening me and getting me closer to where I want to go?
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rain.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
A very complex question. Karma, consciousness, awareness. This is, essentially, a semester-long course. But we'll try to summarize in a few minutes. So consciousness, one of the dilemmas that we face all the time. when we're speaking in English about different Sanskrit terms is we use a lot of different words to define, a lot of different English words to define different Sanskrit words. We also use a lot of different words to speak about different aspects of essentially the same thing. Consciousness can mean many different things. Number one, it can mean simply on a purely biomedical level. It can mean your ability to be aware that you are here. Conscious, unconscious. You're playing baseball, you get hit in the head with a baseball, you are unconscious. You wake up in the hospital, you have no idea what happened between the time that you left first base to run for second base and the time that you woke up in the hospital. You were unconscious, now you are conscious. You're not necessarily any more spiritually awake, it's just you are now biomedically awake. The part of your brain that knows I am here is now turned back on. So on the most basic neurological level, consciousness can simply be essentially every state other than coma, unconsciousness, deep sleep. Those are sort of the times in which we absolutely lose any sense of the self whatsoever. And all of the rest of the time we are conscious. That's the basic physical, biomedical, neurological level. When I speak about consciousness in the way that I was speaking about it, I use it frequently in a list of words because we have people who come from every different religious tradition, every different spiritual tradition, every different religious and spiritual background. And so when we speak about that which is infinite, that which is unbroken, that which pervades everything, the isness, we can use the word God, we can use the word divinity, we can use the word soul when we are speaking about Padam Atma, the supreme soul, that one soul, that ocean, that even though there are waves, there is no break in the infiniteness of the ocean. We can use the word spirit. We can use the word love. We can use the word truth when we mean that truth in a bigger way, an infinite way, that capital T truth. When we speak about Sat, Chit, Anand, so the Sat that we speak about in that ultimate truth. And we can use the word consciousness. So when I'm using the word consciousness there, I'm using it in not exactly nitty-gritty precise due to shortage of time and the varying backgrounds of the audience, but a close enough for the point of what we speak about. Word to mean that which flows through us all, that which just is, that which is unimpacted by, unchanged by anything in our physical body, anything in our physical experience, anything in this particular karmic package. Consciousness just is conscious. When we meditate and we get beyond the levels of I am thinking, and we get beyond the levels of I am meditating, and we get beyond the levels of that's an ant itching my knee, eventually we drop into a space of consciousness in which we've tapped into, and it's hard to describe verbally, but it's an experience of tapping into simply the presence of consciousness. You can think about it like a field like a quantum physics field, as in lots of things happen in the field, but the field itself is the field in which everything else is happening. It's another way to think about it, if you're a little bit more scientifically inclined. So when I speak about consciousness, I'm speaking about a pure consciousness, not an adjective to describe are you conscious or not, but a pure consciousness into which we tap, which flows through us, as us, is us. But we may go our entire lives never actually connecting with it. We may go our entire lives connecting only to the thinking mind, only to identification with the body. But hopefully through our spiritual practices, we have an experience of, oh, and consciousness just is. Now, within consciousness, to me, I am not Mrs. Webster, so I couldn't tell you that this is exactly what the dictionary would tell you. But to me, awareness is more specific than consciousness. So consciousness to me, again, is that pure consciousness of just the isness, the field in which all else happens. Consciousness just is conscious. It's that energy. And again, you can call it soul, you can call it spirit. It's that which brings life, in a sense, to the body, but doesn't die with the body. Through tapping into that consciousness, we can become aware on a very, very deep level. Then we can tap in on that deepest level of what you can think of as pure awareness, where it's me who's aware. So there's a me who is here. I am the one who is aware. But awareness doesn't change. So right now I'm aware of my finger moving. Now I'm aware of the feeling of the glass. Now I'm aware of the look on your face. But awareness hasn't changed at all. The object I'm aware of has changed. But the subject, which is awareness, has not. Awareness is just aware. And it can be as specific or as vast. I can be aware of the camera, or I can just be aware. In general. A lot of meditative practices are focused on training us to just be aware. And things arise in awareness. An itch, a pain, a thought, a sound. But we just return to that state of pure awareness in which all of these things are arising and I am aware of them. But I'm anchored in the aspect of being aware rather than in the object that I am aware of. But again, to me, and this is just on a very personal sort of how I think about it, when I think of pure consciousness, I think of something that is just kind of one step beyond, deeper than pure awareness. Because to me, awareness requires the me to be aware. Whereas consciousness doesn't actually require me. Consciousness just is. I want to tap into it, good for me. It just is. I'm here, I'm not here, consciousness is. Does that make sense? It was a very abbreviated version of really, really complex topics. Lastly, karma with this. So does consciousness choose our karmic package? No. Remember, consciousness just is. Consciousness is not doing an eeny, meeny, miny, mo, should I, where to be born, rich or poor, boy or girl. No. What's choosing our conscious package, or our karmic package, is actually our past karma. The actions we've done in the past, karma's action, have given us, you can think of it like a karmic bank account, and we've got a certain amount in the credit side and a certain amount in the debit side, and they don't cancel each other out. And so we need a life package that's going to give us the best opportunity to clear both sides. So I need to have the opportunity to have experiences to clear my positive side. That'll be the stuff that feels pleasurable while it's happening. And that's going to enable me to clear the debit side. The stuff that doesn't feel so pleasurable while it's happening. So my karmic package is created by the situations that are most conducive for me to clear those. And it is chosen, if you can think of chosen, by that package of soul and subtle body, man, mind, buddhi, intellect, ahankar, ego, based on what it needs to be purified, based on what the sanskaras in it are, what the impressions in it are. That's going to create my karmic package in each birth. But regardless of what my karmic package is, my opportunity, my calling, my dharma, to become aware of, using just these same arbitrary definitions, to become aware of consciousness. To merge into that state of pure consciousness. To recognize my oneness with the divine. Soul, spirit, divinity, love, truth, consciousness. To really recognize my oneness with that. That's all of our dharma, regardless of what karmic package we've come in with. But the different packages are based on which experiences are going to be conducive for each of us to have that awareness.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.